In moments of challenge or conflict, ego is our worst enemy. Find out more coming up next. Oftentimes, when we find ourselves in an interpersonal situation where someone is bringing kind of an intense energy to the situation, maybe they're accusing us of something, whether it's something we did or something we didn't do, they're upset for whatever reason it might be. We have this kind of innate and automatic, intense upwelling of emotion. This sense that, hey, I'm being attacked. I'm feeling angry. Now I feel defensive. It's that kind of immediate, like, ooh, I've got to push back on this. I've got this energy to push back, to push their energy away from us. What that is our ego, purely and simply. Whether they're right or whether they're wrong doesn't matter. We still have that kind of upwelling of defensive emotional energy. And our ego is there really for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to create a barrier of protection for us. It's to kind of protect our mind, to protect the integrity of who we believe we are. And it's just a pure kind of defensive reaction. Not necessarily a bad thing, it's kind of an innate thing. Now, what can be bad about it is what flows from that sense of protection, that sense of defensiveness. Because in most situations where someone is coming at us, accusing us of something, or just upset for whatever reason it might be, we don't really need to protect ourselves, right? It's not a true threat in the most concrete sense of the word. Maybe it's a psychological threat. We're perceiving it as that anyway. And so what happens when we have that ego-driven kind of defensive response is we come back with emotional energy to that person. And now we're in this kind of deadlocked emotional space that doesn't lend itself well to constructive or to solution-oriented ways of moving forward. It intensifies the conflict in those moments. It doesn't make it better. So one of the things that I have tried to do over the years is to really, as quickly as possible, recognize that feeling I'm having, those thoughts of pushing back and of fighting back in that moment are not the best way forward. They are my ego talking. And in those moments, my ego will not serve me well. And so you got to grab a hold of that really quickly before you speak, before you behave. Call out the fact that this is my ego, and I've got, if I want to move forward in a positive or a constructive or solution-oriented manner, I have to grab a hold of that and I have to set it aside. I have to resist the urge to respond the way that my ego wants me to respond. And so if that person is accusing me of something, that intense emotion, grab it, set it aside, and say, I hear you, let's talk. What's the problem? Listening and not responding with that ego-driven, emotional, defensive response is really the only way that you're going to move through that in a constructive fashion. It's the only way that you're not going to, let me rephrase that. It's the best way to lower the probability of an escalation in that situation. And oftentimes when you can do that, when you can pull your emotional energy to the side for a moment and just say, hey, looks like you're upset. What can I do? Let me hear you. Just acknowledge their space, acknowledge where they're coming from. It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. And when we do that, at least in my experience, what often happens is their emotional energy comes down. And now we're in a place where we can have a conversation that's kind of driven by logic, that is less emotionally laden and more productive. And the more that we can do that, the more productive our conversations become with other people, the more effective we become at managing emotional intensity in others and managing our own emotional intensity. And we just become more effective managers of interpersonal relationships overall. So the next time you feel attacked or defensive or frustrated by what someone said to you, recognize that is in all likelihood your ego trying to defend you in a space that you probably don't need to be defended. And that if you want the best outcome for that situation, we need to set that aside, listen, and keep our conversation focused in the space of logic and de-escalation. I hope you found today's content helpful. If you did, take a moment, hit that like button. If you know someone else who could benefit from this message, take a moment and share it with them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment before you go anywhere else, reach out and touch that subscribe button. And until next time, please be well.